Yeah, so today we're going to continue our deep dive into Guilds of Ravnica Standard in preparation for Week 1's Team Open in
Columbus.
Yeah. That is a team tournament, so there will be Modern, there will be Legacy. We're going to bring y'all basically team decks next week where we try to figure out the best 3-deck combination. But this week, we still got to figure out what we're doing in Standard. We're going to be playing, well, you're playing one of your own concoctions here today, this mono red deck. Let's go ahead and start it off, and you talk about this deck.
Okay, so I'm basically building a low-to-the-ground mono red deck that wants to take advantage of Experimental Frenzy. So far, well, I've been here for 2 of these versus lives, and one time we saw, I guess they're both Boros decks, but with Boros Aggro with Experimental Frenzy in the sideboard, and then Ross had Boros Goblins last time with Experimental Frenzy in the sideboard, and the cards looked really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, we've had similar cards to this in the past. Just the Chandra Torch of Defiance tick up is kind of similar. Before that, we had Outpost Siege, and we still even have Vance's Blasting Cannons that have been in there. But the key difference that made Chandra and Vance's Blasting Cannon not quite as good is that you couldn't play the lands.
Right.
And as you try to get more cards, get deeper in your deck, those extra lands actually are important. The cool thing about Experimental Frenzy is that it keeps going.
Yeah.
And as long as you hit a chain of spells, you get to play every single spell off the top as long as you have enough mana. The huge downside, however, if you play it too early in the game, all the cards in your hand get locked. So that also means there's some deck building restrictions. You can't play a bunch of things that say draw a card, because every time you draw a card, that thing gets stuck in your hand until you decide to pay the mana to kill off your own Experimental Frenzy. The card has been incredibly impressive. What's the other main draw of your deck, though? I know there's one other card that you really like.
Yeah, so the other new card that I'm really trying out here in this mono red deck is Runaway Steamkin. So I think that that's going to just pair really well with Experimental Frenzy, where every time you cast any red spell whatsoever, you get to put a 1/1 counter on the Runaway Steamkin, and then you can remove 3 counters. So after you play 3 spells, to add 3 red mana. Yep. Well, if you can just continue to play spells off the top of your library, having access to extra mana like that could be really beneficial. So I think the two together could work really well together and synergize well, and so that's what I want to check out today.
Yeah, I mean, on top of that, I think Runaway Steamkin is just a fine aggressive card. For 2 mana, you get a 1/1, but every time you play a red spell, it can get up to as big as a 4/4. I think there's the restriction.
Right.
As long as it has 3 counters, it can't get bigger. But you can just always remove that to generate extra mana to actually play more stuff. One thing I love about Experimental Steamkin is it gives you a mana dump for mana sinks, for like Experimental Frenzy, but you also have Goblin Mentor, the 1 mana 1/1.
Yeah, Goblin Banneret. So yeah,
Goblin Banneret.
Yeah, Goblin Banneret's another just way to use extra mana, like you said. And even though you don't get more +1/+1 counters whenever you have the 3 of them, you can just leave the 3 on there if you want to just have a 4/4.
2 mana 4/4.
Yeah, 2 mana 4/4 is perfectly fine. So yeah, it's kind of like a hard card to block and everything because it's just a big card. So that's pretty exciting. So that's what I got going on. So what are you playing today?
Today I am trying out just a string of various Rider decks from StarCityGames.com. If you want to learn more about these decks, make sure to check out Brian Gottlieb and Sam Black's articles from yesterday. For this video, for this match, I am playing the Dimir control deck that Brian Gottlieb wrote about yesterday. This deck actually just looks solid.
It looks really good.
It has a lot of new cards, revolving around the Dimir guild. Things like Thought Erasure, Doom Whisper as the main win condition, which I love. I've just been a huge fan of Doom Whisper since the first time I played it in a Grixis deck like 2 weeks ago. And I think when you start to use the Surveil mechanic with things like Dimir Spybug or Thoughtbound Phantasm, it starts to get degenerate. And that's one thing that I think needs to be spotlighted. But this deck actually just showcases it as a 5-mana 6/6 flying finisher. If your opponent is able to deal with it before they actually kill it, just spend some life if you have some to work with and find another one. Or, just find the removal spell you need or whatever. And I just think it's a great card that Brian decided to build around in his control deck. Aside from that, we got the traditional control stuff, counter spells, removal, card draw with things like Chemister's Insight, and also Search for Ascanta, the classics. This deck, a lot of people think Teferi is the control card, and for a lot of respects, I think that will be true once we get Azorius and Hallowed Fountain and a bunch of these really good blue-white cards from the Blue-White Guild. But You actually have a blue-white deck that we'll be talking about later. And
Yeah, next match I'm going to be playing Jerry Thompson's Azorius Control. So we're going to try it out, even though there's not a whole lot of just blue-white cards from Guilds of Ravnica. But we're going to be trying Teferi. I know that's something that a lot of people have been saying that, oh, you're playing cool decks, but they're going to die to Teferi. Well, we'll see. But what I really like with your Dimir deck, though, is since you're only playing Doom Whisper as like the main finisher, you get to play 3 Ritual of Soot in the main deck, and I think that's just a really strong card, like a 4-mana sweeper that looks to be pretty good in this format, and so that's a really big draw to your deck, I believe.
Yeah. So for the last like 5 years or so, the only 4-mana sweepers we've had, the last one that I remember is Supreme Verdict, or at least
we had
one
Languish and Mutilate.
We had a few
black,
that were close. You know, they weren't quite good enough, and the black is usually where you get the 4-mana ones, and they do something that's pretty good, but they don't always clear everything. And Ritual Soot, very similar to that, but if the format shapes up, that is really aggressive. There's a lot of token-based decks. There's a lot of decks that try to hit the 1-2-3 curve. Ritual Soot's going to be busted, and as long as you don't have a lot of stuff that gets swept under your own spell, it's going to be a powerful card. And even if it's bad in a certain matchup, just side it out.
Yeah, that's a great part.
Cool thing about all the spells in my deck that can end up being dead actually can get pitched to jumpstart with things like Chemist's Insight,
that's a good point.
Or even Radical Idea. Radical Idea, kind of like a Think Twice. It's a little cheaper, but you don't quite get the extra card. But it allows you to translate some of these dead cards in a specific matchup into actual Magic cards.
That's pretty cool. All right, so let's go to the die roll, see what happens between Experimental Frenzy Red, mono red aggro, and Dimir Control.
All right. I got a 7-11 game.
Yeah.
Let's start with that. All right, 7 you lose, 11 you win.
11. Oh, so close.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow, that was close. I was almost on the play for all 3 games.
All right, so you get to go first.
Todd Stevens, question.
Yeah.
How can the Boros deck deal with Cleansing Nova and Ritual of Soot?
Basically by just not putting too much stuff on the battlefield. You don't have to really, like the sweepers are always good against permanent-based decks, but you don't have to throw everything out whenever you're ahead on the battlefield. You can just stay there. And I like my hand. I got a 1-drop and a 2-drop, and we got some lands, so that's a good start.
All right, my side. We're on the draw here, which means some of our cards are going to be a lot worse. Memorial to Folly is actually a card that I'm not sure about. Brian has this in his list as a way to make sure that he has ways to bring back the Doom Whispers if they do get sent to the graveyard, because he doesn't have that many actual ways to win the game. So even though we only have 3 Doom Whisper, we have at least 1 or 2 Memorial to Folly to give us effectively 5.
Yeah, I like that, because especially like early in the game when you're surveilling, maybe you just can't afford to draw the Doom Whisper, and you have to put it in your graveyard with the surveilling. All right, get in there for 1. All right, that's it, just 1.
19.
And then a second main will play Runaway Steamkin. All right, first time to play this card, so let's see how this card is.
Well, I'm sorry to say, we drew it.
Oh no, that Steamkin is dead
I
weight.
really needed to draw it. I didn't have a removal spell until then.
Now we have an option of which one of these 2 we want to play. I think I'm going to actually play the one that uses our mana better, so we can play these 2 next turn. So we'll just hit you for 1 with the Chain Whirler, hit you for 1 with the Banneret, so you're down to 17.
One really good sequence with this red deck that I noticed is that if you play Goblin Banneret on 1, any cheap haste creature you draw later in the game effectively gets +1 power as long as you're able to pay for the Mentor ability. So even if you float out, you have this mana sink that gives you not only +2 damage from the Pump ability on Banneret, but also the Mentor ability +1 as well.
All right, I'm going to go to combat.
Yep.
And I'm going to attack with both.
Yep.
No effects.
All right, I'll take 4. I'm at 14.
It got you down to 13 now. Like
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Yep. All right, another Runaway Steamkin.
I'm going to play an Essence Scatter. I just want to make sure that I get to play my spells.
Dang. Lightning Mirror. Can't be countered.
Can't be countered.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead.
That sequence is actually pretty smart, because if I chose not to Essence Scatter that, hoping to catch something better, I would have got blown out by him playing the uncounterable Lightning Mirror. I'm not sure how good Lightning Mirror is going to be in the new standard format.
Yeah.
Just because the 1 toughness means that opposing red deck Chain Whirlers are going to be good, but opposing Chain Whirlers are already good against you. So.
Yeah. So whenever I built this deck, the common thing that I think a lot of people would go to is get 2 Lava Runner and the 2/1 Wizard that shocks. and Wizard's Lightning. But that's only 8 wizards, and I didn't really want Wizard's Lightning as a spell with only the 8 wizards, and so I'm actually kind of going away from that and playing some other cards in my deck. But we're coming on in. Todd saying the water's fine, I guess. So going in. I guess so. No blocks, right?
No blocks.
So then after that, we'll pump this up. I guess I could have pumped this up twice before and tried to mentor something, but
you can do that.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
fine.
yeah. I'm just gonna pump it up twice.
All right,
and
so
then,
before attack, so
yeah.
you're pumping up twice. You have to do that before you declare attacks, I think,
Right,
because once you declare attacks, it has to choose a target for mentor.
Yep, and the mentor has to be a valid target when you both times.
So this is kind of gross. I want him to use his mana like every turn for the Banneret, but to save the most damage possible, I think I just need to Vraska's Contempt this. But that's going to put me in a pretty bad spot here. So I'm going to gain 2 life up to 15, and then I'm going to take 6 down to 9.
Yep. That's why Banneret's such a strong 1-drop.
Yeah.
It's such a strong 1-drop.
Very
Go ahead.
good. All right.
This is where you usually play the Scarab God.
Yeah. I'm actually going to main phase a Chemist's Insight and hope that I draw a Deadweight for the Lightning Mare because we have nothing else to do. We could have main phased a Radical Idea, and if Stevens draws a land, we're just dead. All right, go ahead. Just because he can pump the Lightning Mare multiple times.
Yep. 6, and then Lightning Strike.
Dead.
Yep. I just drew Experimental Frenzy. That would have been good. But didn't need it.
No, dude, that's something that's really sweet about that deck is that even if I'm able to clear off these creatures, like if I had played Ritual Sit that turn, like you could just play Experimental Frenzy, and then I'm in a ton of trouble.
Yeah.
You know, the blue-black deck doesn't have a lot of ways to actually handle non-creature, non-planeswalker permanents, and you know that's just it's just a lot to deal with.
Yeah.
Let's field some questions before we go to sideboarding, since that game was pretty quick. I think the games from this mono red deck are going to be pretty quick. We're going to play the full 3 games of this matchup, even if I get 2-0'd, and I think I'm probably going to get 3-0'd. But what we got, Mr. Nick Miller?
No questions about the standard match as of yet.
Okay.
But they want to know, Todd Stevens, B-Boy Yeo says, is Night of Autumn good enough for the main deck of Green-White Value Town?
I don't think it's good enough for the main deck right now. I think the metagame would have to be where you really want to destroy a lot of artifacts and enchantments for it to make it to the main deck. The plus the 2 1/1 counters on it, making it a 4/3, just doesn't matter in Value Town because it's just Value Town's a very defensive deck.
That's 0 value.
Yeah, so it's not about attacking. So like that part doesn't matter. So you really need to be able to destroy artifacts and enchantments. However, I'm definitely playing 2 in the sideboard with my Eldritch Evolution to make it effectively 3 copy. Copy.
No, I love that card in your Green White Value Town deck, and even the banned versions that you've been playing more recently. It just straight up seems like it replaces Reclamation Sage.
Yeah.
For any deck that can splash white, it's a better card. You know, like it can do the same thing as Rec Sage, but also just has 2 other abilities. Like you can come in against Burn, and in the right spots, you can either gain 4 life or destroy an Eidolon of the Great Revel. Both of which
I was already bringing in Rec Sage against them anyway. So
right.
It's just much better.
And I mean, I think there is a chance that maybe more copies is worthwhile just because it can come in against like things like Affinity. You know, the Hardened Scales versions of the deck have been popping up a lot lately, and you know, it's just a fine card in those matchups. Next question.
Then Aaron Frey 1212 wants to know: are we going to be playing any modern decks with the Guilds of Ravnica cards coming up?
We are next week. So next week, leading into SCG Columbus, both Tuesday and Thursday, we're going to be playing a team set for for our 3 matches. So we'll be playing 1 standard, 1 modern, 1 legacy for next week.
Yeah, and that's just going to be we're going to be doing that Tuesday and Thursday. Just probably going to be playing 6 total different decks, 2 of each format. We're going to try to get some Guilds of Ravnica cards in these modern and legacy decks. I think Assassin's Trophy is the big one for legacy. Like I think
that's kind of like the only one for legacy.
Yeah, I mean, you know, cards like Path to Exile, Ghost Quarter, you know, they crop up every now and then in legacy because there aren't a lot of basic lands. And something like Assassin's Trophy is going to probably change the landscape of how people build their decks. Like if it's, you know, it's a catch-all answer for a lot of these bug decks, the
Soul Tide
variants and stuff. And it just seems like a great answer to things like Back to Basics, Resolve Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Or even stuff like Dark Depths, Thespian Stage.
Right.
You know? Like just,
Yeah.
so it can do anything. So yeah, that's going to be a big part of Legacy. As far as Modern, I'm probably going to play Value Town next week. Probably will with Night of Autumn.
I mean, why wouldn't you not?
Yeah, so I'm probably going to do that. But
so just so y'all know, Brad Nelson was sick today. He was I'm tagging in for him. He should be healthy next week to show y'all what he would play at SCG Columbus. So be aware of that. Let's do one more question before we get to sideboarding.
Redbeard wants to know why no Flame of Keld in the red list.
So I basically, instead of Flame of Keld, I'm using
Frenzy.
Experimental Frenzy. And the same kind of thing where you want Flame of Keld to be like your last thing because you discard your hand whenever you play it. But then you get to draw a couple extra cards. But instead of that, Experimental Frenzy does cost 2 more mana, but it just has such a higher potential to just be able to rifle through your deck and get you so many more cards.
Yeah, I mean, I think Flame of Keld is just a super high variance card too. Like you want to play it when you're super low to the ground. It encourages you to play more burn spells. Like you want to play more Wizard's Lightning so that you get the +2 damage bonus to the face, which I like. And yes, it does cost 2 less mana, but again, it does make you discard your hand. So you're usually casting it on turn 4 or 5 anyway, just like you would Experimental Frenzy. But Frenzy has the potential to actually just completely take over the game. Whereas Flame of Keld, you can just kind of sputter out.
Yeah.
I do like Flame of Keld. I think the card's very good. It was one of my sleeper hits when it was first printed, and it just kind of got overlooked because the better aggressive deck was the Rakdos, Scrap Heap Scrounger, Heart of Kieran deck. So.
Right. So there we go. All right, so we're going to take a couple-minute break here, and we'll be right back after sideboarding.
All right, we're here for sideboarding after game 1. Mr. Stevens giving me the beat down. So we're going to be boarding in a couple more sweeper effects with Golden Demise. Moment of Craving is a pretty solid removal spell against this mono red deck, killing most of the 1 and 2 drop creatures for 2 mana, while also gaining 2 life to give me a little bit of a buffer. As the game goes longer, though, I'm going to need some sort of engine card, I think, to really get things going, whether that's Search for Escanta or Karn Sign of Urza, just something to actually kind of close the game while maybe generating some resources along the way. We're going to be cutting some of our more situational counterspells with Negate and Disdainful Stroke. While these do counter Experimental Frenzy, I need to make sure I can survive the onslaught of cheap creatures early on. So I think that having these in my opening hand is not great. Plus, I still have things like Syncopate and the Sinister Sabotage to take care of the more expensive stuff. Thought Erasure is also equally okay, but not great. It's good on turn 2. It's good on turn 4 when paired with something like Essence Scatter or a 2-mana counterspell. But if the game gets to a point where Todd just has no cards in hand or has an Experimental Frenzy in play, this is one of the worst cards you could possibly draw. So for me, boarding out these 4 for these 4.
Okay. I'm doing a very tried and true mono red strategy where we want to be low to the ground game 1, but then kind of go a little bit bigger when our opponent brings in a lot of cheap removal spells and stuff. Shock shouldn't really do too much in this matchup. Just going to be like a card for 2 damage basically to the face. That's basically all it's going to do. So that's going to come out. And then our worst of the 1-drops probably with the Rigging Runner. Rigging Runner is a 1-drop that hasn't seen play so far because we had some strong ones in the format before.
Yeah, like Bomac.
Yeah, but I'm actually kind of excited about it with this deck, especially when you're playing cards with Mentor, whenever you have things to mentor. If he comes in as a 2/2 first striker, if you can have your other 1-drop be able to mentor it up to like a 3/3 with first strike, it can be a real threat. So I'm actually kind of excited about this 1-drop, but unfortunately it's coming out here. Rekindling Phoenix is just an amazing card, getting that last Experimental Frenzy in here, and since we're up in the curve, we're bringing in a couple more Mountains.
Yeah, it's a pretty common thing we've seen over the last couple of years where we see these aggressive decks that are very low to the ground. After sideboard, they have good 3, 4, and 5 mana threats, and occasionally board in a couple lands to help them cast them. Rekindling Phoenix, obviously a great card against control. Luckily, Vraska's Contempt does exile, so it is one of our cleaner answers. However, we may have to use that earlier on just to either gain some life or keep us from dying to something early.
Quick correction here. The Rigging Runner got some play week 1 of that standard format in the hands of Craig Crimples and his Path to Metal aggro deck that he made top 8 with at the team event.
Oh, yeah. There we go. See? Saw plenty of play.
Just that one time.
I believe Ben Stark also had it in his deck at Worlds this weekend.
Sure.
Oh. I did not realize that. I was a little busy at SCG Baltimore this weekend. Infecting people. That deck's fun.
It is sweet. It was one of the more fun Legacy decks I've ever played.
Yeah.
When Tom Ross lived in Roanoke, we would talk about various Tom Ross decks all the time, and he would occasionally convince me to play. I know Nick Miller is a fan of
Infect, great.
the boss as well as Infect. So I'm going to be on the play here.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and get started for game 2. And if you have any questions for us, feel free to type them out in the chat. Nick Miller's going to be marking down the ones that he likes the best, and he will be asking those whenever we have a bit of downtime. My hand is great.
Yeah, my hand's pretty good. I only got my 2 lands, so I'm going to kind of want to hit some more to get to my 4-drop, but yeah, my hand's pretty good. We are going to be attacking on turn 1.
Ow. Ow.
That is fanatical.
Stop.
18.
Let's go.
Kind of drew the opposite of land, though. Ugh, that's not really a land either. Okay, attacking for 1 again. Yep, all right.
18.
And then Lightning Mirror. Can't counter that one.
Nope, but I can sweep your board.
No.
Just get a Golden Demise off. Pop them off. Your
All
turn.
right. Land. Oh, no, this is not working out. Go.
Okay.
You're going to play a blue creature. It's not going to be able to block. Now you really want to block with your blue creature.
I don't have any of those in my deck. This is probably loose. I'm going to protect my life total. Go. If I had another removal spell, I would lean on that, but yeah.
Go.
Sure. But we're going to get this very large boy onto the battlefield. Doom Whisper.
Doom. Okay.
We're at 18, so we actually have the ability to use Surveil here for value.
This happens sometimes in red decks. So basically, we could just suicide a goblin in and get 3 in. We could, I guess, get 2 in if we want to like pump one first and then mentor the other, and then you block the 3 and I have a 2/2. So I could do 2 and put a counter on my creature.
Either of those seem great when I'm at 18, but
yeah,
desperate times call for desperate measures.
It does make it so you can't pay as much life to Surveil, probably, but no. I think we just pass, and
all right.
If Todd wants to attack, we can attack
I'll
back.
pay 2. I'm at 16. I'm going to Surveil 2.
All right. We drew the opposite of lands. We drew 4/4/3.
Well, I wish I had not Surveilled 2 because both cards are great.
Nice.
I'm going to smoosh.
All right, so I'm down to 14.
Your turn.
I'm going to strike you down to 13.
Yep. While he's tapped out, I think I'm going to go ahead and Moment of Craving one of these.
All right, you get this
I'm
one.
going to gain 2 life up to 15.
Yep. Attack for 1.
No blocks.
Okay, your turn.
All right, so this is going to put me to 14.
Yep.
All right, during your step, I'm going to play Chemist's Insight, draw 2 cards.
So much mana.
Yep. All right, I'm just not even going to bother because why would I? With Chemist's Insight, it's also less important to Surveil because any card you draw, even if it's bad, can just turn into 2 more cards. So
Yeah.
hit you for 6 down to 8, and we're just going to let Doom Whisperer do all the heavy lifting since Mono Red has a lot of trouble dealing 6 to a creature.
That is true. Trigger. Yeah, put a counter on that thing. Go to combat.
Sure.
Fortunately, don't have any extra mana to pump
I'm
this
gonna
up.
Rastic Contempt this thing just to protect my life total.
Can I
Puts me
sacrifice
to-
it? No.
I don't
Dang
think
it.
so. Puts me at 16, and then I'll take 2 back down to 14.
Yep. Don't even change. Go ahead.
Nothing to do with the 2 mana. Draw. Alright, attack for 6.
Down to 2.
Your turn. With my hand basically rolled up, I am not really planning on casting much of anything. Yep. And that's just, once you get Doom Whisperer onto the battlefield, like if the red deck stumbles at all, like a turn 5 Doom Whisperer can close the game very quickly, and that's not something we see from control finishers very often.
Wow, I was not looking at land anytime soon.
All right. Is there any changes you would like to make to your deck?
Nope, I'm going to keep my deck the same, so I'll just be shuffling up. So, so we kept our 2-lander, got, which I think was a fine keep. We only had 1 card, only 1 4-drop in our hand at the time. So everything else cost 2 or less.
All right. Because of how good the Doom Whisperer is in this matchup, I think I'm just going to cut my cards in favor of some cheaper interaction with Thought Erasure and just, maybe take his best 4-drop if he curves out. It just gives me something to do on 2 that can potentially impact the game, whereas Karn has a chance, especially on the draw, to just do nothing.
All right, Nick, fire away.
I kind of already covered this. Why the extra 2 mountains? You brought in the...
Yeah, so bringing in all the 4-drops. That's why I have the extra 2 mountains in here, which Didn't really help me that game. I don't know where those mountains
Well,
are.
maybe one of them was the one you drew, so you actually were able to cast your 2-drop. No, I mean, it's fairly common for aggressive decks to have a land in the sideboard. We saw that a ton with the Mardu Vehicles deck back when Gideon was in the format, and even various Tom Ross brews. I know Tom was
Tom always loves
a huge proponent of playing like 18, 19, 20 land, and then boarding in a few more whenever you board in powerful 4-drops.
Yeah, his back-to-back winning White-Red Humans deck had both the creature lands, or like a playset of the
Yeah,
creature
Needle
lands
Spires
in
in
the
the
sideboard.
sideboard, yeah.
Yeah.
Also, people want to know a lot of questions about what's the best control deck going into week 1.
We don't know yet. That's what we're trying to figure out.
So we're playing Dimir and Azorius today for controls, so that'll be a good test with both of them.
Yeah, my real question, more so than what's the best control deck, is how to build your control deck the best to fight the cheap creatures and stuff from these Boros decks, from mono red decks, even stuff like goblins. You know, you need to find ways to beat that. You need to find ways to beat Steel Leaf Stompy.
And the Selesnya tokens decks as well.
Right. So I think String Linkset might actually just be the card, and that means either Esper or Blue Black is the best. My only problem is the Esper, you don't have a ton of blue white lands. You just have Glacial Fortress, so it's a little harder.
Okay, well we got 3 lands this time, so I'm feeling better about it.
I would normally love a hand like this, since we have a Counterspell and a Vraska's Contempt and a bunch of lands, and lands are usually what you want in a control deck. However, if we keep this hand, we are going to lose, because Todd Stevens is just going to play 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, and kill me. So we are going to mulligan.
All right. Got another question over there, Nick?
Yes. Ninroot Conspiracy wants to know, what card or cards do you expect the format to revolve around?
That's pretty tough. Yeah. I guess if I had to pick one card right now, it would probably be History of Benalia. That'd be like the one card I'd probably choose right now.
Oh, I like it though.
Yeah. I think like with Boros and Selesnya, and there's just a lot of other good cards around History of Benalia, ways to make like the creatures bigger with 1/1 counters. There's Convoke. There's lots of things to do with History of Benalia. I think that would be the one card I would choose this early. Still very early. Maybe it's Experimental Frenzy. See that too.
Might be. No, I like History of Benalia. I think that's a really good point. I think any white-based creature deck is going to want 4 of them. Like it's just an insanely powerful card. But with token generator strategies, with Venerated Luxodon, it seems awesome. As well as just a beatdown card in a Boros deck or even a mono white deck.
Yeah, even a sideboard card in Azorius Control as well. Yeah. All right, how's your 6 over there?
My 6 is great. I scried to the bottom. We just need a little more land. All right.
Goblin Banneret. Wait, I guess they're just carrying
Guild
banners.
Gate.
I guess they don't really have bugle horns.
All right. I'm going to just use my mana as efficiently as possible. 18. I'm going to deadweight it.
Ooh. That's some dead weight. Well, it's coming back. Can't hold down Goblin Banneret.
All right. Your turn.
Okay. I'm playing my better card here. Even though this is not a good play against Golden Demise next turn, but it's my better card. But play that, go to combat. Okay, so.
All right, so I'm gonna go to.
You're gonna gain 1, go to 21.
No, I shocked from a Water Grave, so.
Okay, so you're at 19. Yeah. Yep. That Water Grave shocking in. All right, go ahead.
Your turn.
Phoenix.
We're gonna syncopate that for 1.
Oh no!
We sequenced it with. We could have syncopated the War Boss, but I felt like syncopate stopping either Frenzy or Phoenix this turn was more important.
Yep. Go ahead. Do not play around that.
All right.
Guess I could have.
Your turn. Now this is the part that's a little scary for me, because if Todd just doesn't do anything, he can just keep banneretting me to death.
Firebrand.
Yeah, that's fine. Yep.
Go to combat.
Yep.
Attack, Mentor trigger.
I'll take.
Before damage, pump again.
Yep. I'll take 7.
Yep.
11.
So 5, 6, 7, down to 11. Your turn.
All right. I think I'll use the more mana efficient one here. I'm gonna play Ritual Soot. Your turn. Now, if he plays Experimental Frenzy or a Phoenix here, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, that would have been great to have one of my 4 drops, but Chain Whirler's not the worst.
Wow, it's pretty good
against all the -2/-2 stuff that Todd has.
That's a great argument for playing one of these versus the other. If I use Golden Demise last turn, Ritual Soak could take care of that. Now I'm in a spot where it might not necessarily do anything, and I might just die to a 3/3. We saw that a lot with Fatal Push last season. Fatal Push getting stuck in the blue-black player's hands against Goblin Chainwhirler quite a bit.
I'm going to be going for putting Todd on lethal next turn. And
I'm
try
going
and play
to
that.
sabotage it. And
Okay, and Scry one? Or Surveil one?
Surveil one.
So you notice there I'm still playing my lands because of Experimental Frenzy. I think you just want to just play all your lands. There's not really a reason to
you're not playing
hold
any
up
Jumpstart
something.
cards, right? So.
No.
All right, and this is what we were afraid of. Thought Erasure doing nothing. We're going to main phase a Chemist's Insight. Try to find some way to interact with this Chainwhirler. Your turn.
Experimental Frenzy. His friend, Legion Warboss.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All right.
So
combat, take 4, down to 3.
Yep.
Your turn.
I just dead. See if I target this. I go to 5. I'm not quite dead. I'm really close though. So if I target Warboss with this, I go to 5 and I take 4. If I play Doom Whisper, I'm dead. Golden Demise, I'm dead.
Yeah, Golden. So if you can't take this out, right? Because that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So you have to take out Warboss. That's pretty disappointing when you have a Golden Demise. That's for sure.
Yeah, if I had just played the Golden Demise on 4 or on turn 5 instead of the Soot, I would be in a lot better shape this game. This Golden Demise is looking pretty bad right now against Chainwhirler.
I had like the 1 card to punish you.
Right,
well, I guess let's do this pre-combat.
Yeah, I'm dead now.
Yeah, because we may have a haste card. Well, we'll play our land. It's another land, but we'll just draw that next turn and then be able to play a bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
so
go to 1.
Down to 1. Your turn. Moment of Craving to go with your Golden Demise. That'd be nice. Hopefully you're not dead so I can do stuff with this Frenzy. Okay. Not dead.
Your turn. Now Frenzy's going to bury me.
All right, so we're drawing the mountain, so that's going to our hand. So we can't play it, but that doesn't matter because it's a mountain. So our top card is a Lightning Strike. So we'll cast that.
That's
and then we'll be able to cast this. Maybe I target myself. And then, I target myself, so then I can do this to kill you.
Yeah, I mean, and I just want to take a second and talk about this because as the control player, I was able to actually contain the cards that Todd drew that game. If Experimental Frenzy had just been
another Phoenix, or like if it's another Phoenix, you can play your 6/6 and block it.
Right, but if it's basically anything except Experimental Frenzy, I can hopefully trade 1 for 1. Like I had another Vraska's Contempt, so as long as it's not Lightning Strike, I could take care of the creature, go up to 3, and maybe even find a counter spell. So the turn after that, I could maybe just completely stabilize. But the fact that he can play every single spell off the top of his deck for the foreseeable future, and as a blue-black deck, I have virtually no way to interact with it. Yeah. It's just going to bury me, and I think that's really where the strength of Experimental Frenzy lies, is against these slower decks, against these control decks, or any deck trying to trade 1 for 1. It gives these low to the ground mono red decks just so much card advantage in big bursts that there's not a whole lot you can do about it. And even though like you had me at such a low life total even before you drew this was the nail in the coffin, 100%.
Yeah. You could have been at like 10 though, and I still probably win this with this Experimental Frenzy.
Right. Like you're just going to grind me out.
I'm just going to have like 3 cards a turn basically.
Right.
For the foreseeable future.
Let's take some Q&A before we go to break, before we do our next set of decks.
Well, after we saw Chainwhirler come in there and do some work, people are still wanting to know, is the Chainwhirler plus status combo going to be a real thing?
I don't think so. Maybe whenever we have better Jund mana, so maybe the next set. But
Stomping Ground and Blood Crypt both come out next set, so I mean those are 2 lands. And one of the reasons why I think Chainwhirler might not be as huge of a part of Standard.
It'll still be in there, but not nearly the same.
Right. I mean, once we can play a Jund deck and you get 4 Blood Crypt, 4 Stomping Ground, 4 Rootbound Crag, 4 Dragon Skull Summit, those are just 16 red sources that also cast your other spells.
Yeah.
And you can be a hard red-based deck that splashes certain things. And Status Statue, if I believe, Statue's the 4 mana just like kill basically anything that's not a Planeswalker. And that combined with Chainwhirler just seems like a fantastic combination. And once we get access to those lands that actually produce either the black or the green needed for status, that's going to be huge.
Yeah, and I think we may see like kind of a resurgence of dinosaurs also whenever we get those colors also, like Stomping Ground. Maybe that's what like Regisaur Alpha needs and stuff. So yeah, that'll be pretty interesting to see.
Chris Superstar wants to know, is there a Nexus of Fate deck still in the format?
I mean, I think that as long as Teferi exists, there could be a Nexus of Fate deck, and the Azorius deck we're playing next match does have 2 copies of Nexus of Fate in it, and as long as you have Teferi going, you know, that gives you a reason to time walk. Planeswalkers always give you a reason to time walk. We see this a lot in Cube Draft. We see this a lot in even Vintage, where someone casts an early Jason the Mind Sculptor, and then if you cast a time walk at any point, that's just a free activation of a Planeswalker is incredibly powerful. I don't think we're going to get a Turbo Fog deck like we had previously.
I don't know. I could actually see that Turbo Fog deck, because we did get another copy of a Fog. It's a 3-mana Fog, though, in the new set. But the Bant mana base is not very good, but you know, you had Gift of Paradise that helped out the mana base, and now you have Chromatic Lantern, so you have kind of like 8 copies of like the 3-mana ramp into Teferi, and we have like some different Fog effects. Especially if you're using Gift of Paradise, the untap with with Teferi, you can untap basically 3 mana for the Fog effect. So I wouldn't I don't think it's going to be a week 1 deck, but I could see that being a deck like once the metagame kind of fills out and people realize what they need to have answers for.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not discounting Turbo Fog as a deck, right? I just think that Nexus of Fate is just a powerful card, and as long as you have some engine working with it, whether it's Planeswalker, whether it's Search for Azcanta, you just need a ton of mana to really get value out of Nexus of Fate, just like you need a ton of mana to get any value out of any Time Walk, because you need to be either attacking with a bunch of creatures or generating some massive amount of card advantage with a permanent that either does it for free or does it very cheaply. And as long as we have Teferi, I think we're just going to have Nexus of Fate.
Yeah.
Brad Nelson wants to know, would you rather want to hang out with 1 Brad-sized Ross or 3 Ross-sized Brads?
3 Ross-sized Brads, 100%, because Ross is already too much. And if you just make him bigger, that's a lot. Although 3 Brads is kind of scary.
Yeah.
You know, 3, even if they're small Brads. Just 3 Brads in general, that's pretty intimidating. might be the best team trio of all time, aside from Peach Garden Oak. Let's throw that out.
Lastly here, before our break, what is just your favorite card from Guilds of Ravnica? Thin Bark wants to know.
Okay, favorite overall card? I guess I should probably say Knight of Autumn, since that's going to be the one I'm going to play the most. So I guess that should be my answer.
That's on brand.
Yeah, that's the on-brand answer.
I mean, my on-brand answer is probably some blue-red card, right? I mean,
some blue-red card.
Yeah. I mean, so far, I've really liked Chemist's Insight. The play patterns with the card seem very strong. It's very reminiscent of Glimmer of Genius and how it starts to really steamroll the game. I really like it with cost reducers like Goblin Electromancer and even Primal Wellspring or Primal Amulet. But as far as like just my personal favorites,
the card I've been impressed the most about has been Experimental Frenzy, if you want to say that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been very good. I haven't played with it myself yet, but every time I've seen it cast, it's been awesome. I don't like the restrictions of basically never being able to draw a card. You know, that's kind of my brand. And but as far as like mono res concerned, Experimental Frenzy just seems very powerful. I don't know. I want to play more older formats with Assassin's Trophy. I think that's going to be maybe format defining for Legacy. But
are you excited about that for Jund for Modern?
Not really. As weird as that sounds, like I think it's good.
I'm much more excited about it in like straight green black or Sultai than I am Jund.
No, for sure.
Myself.
I just the downside of giving your opponent land, like I've always hated Path to Exile. Like it's a powerful card. It's very popular in basically every white deck. But just giving your opponent lane just feels so bad.
It just takes them out of the deck so you can Ghost Quarter them easier.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if your whole plan is to run them out of basics, that's fine. I mean, I know that's what you're used to doing. Zusa plus Ruminep Excavator plus Ghost Quarter.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, I'm just going to say it. Crackling Drake.
Okay.
You know? Okay. It's right up my alley. It draws a card. It gets bigger if you have a bunch of instant or sorceries. I played it on Tuesday in a deck, and it felt really good. But other than that, Chemist's Insight.
Yeah.
Those are my 2 answers.
Yeah, Crackling Drake is the most blue and red card. So.
No, it's got 2 of each. Well, that's not true.
Niv Mizzet, yeah.
It's got 3 blue and 3 red.
Dude, Niv Mizzet, when I played it that one time in the ramp deck, wow, it looked great.
Well, it was also just hugely punishing for Ross because he was playing a deck with like 30
Yeah, it's just all spells and flyers. Small flyers and spells, and I have this big flyer. It's like, go ahead, play a spell. I'll draw a card.
Every time you play a spell, I'll draw a card and shoot something for 1?
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Okay.
All right, we're going to take a quick break while we prepare for the next video. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back here for more Versus Live.